Hey everyone, hope you're doing well, staying healthy as always. I recently released a video about COVID becoming endemic and highlighting the fact that four previous coronaviruses had become endemic and are now essentially known as common colds or variants of the common cold. And after seeing this article, felt like maybe I'd just take a few moments to talk about this, especially considering the fact that my son became ill late Christmas night. He had a bit of a headache and wasn't feeling well. The next day, he had a fever. It was maybe peaked around 101 and a half degrees or so. Zero symptoms aside from a headache and a fever. So essentially, we upped his vitamin C intake, made sure he had plenty of fruit, stayed hydrated, rested, and his fever broke within about 24 hours. And now he feels fine. So today he got tested, and his coronavirus rapid test came back. I'm not going to sit here and talk about the effectiveness or accuracy of the tests. It is what it is. But what I find interesting about this article is the LA Times highlights a jump in child COVID hospitalizations in New York. And it sparks concern in California amid the Omicron variant and its rampant spread. One of the major things that's most interesting about this article, it gives zero indication of the actual number of children that were hospitalized. It gives zero information about the duration of the hospitalizations. It gives zero data about the nature of the symptoms, the seriousness of the illness, and let's just be real here and consider the fact that there are so many people who go to ERs and they go to the hospital for cold or flu-like symptoms, like very minor things that they could simply just treat at home if they understood how to treat those types of illnesses. And one thing that I find just perplexing about this whole situation is that the only real resolution that's being pushed here is vaccination. And considering the fact that the definition of vaccination has changed over the course of the past 2 years, it's just kind of ridiculous when we think about the fact that there's basically no attention being paid to the risk factors related to obesity or people living sedentary, unhealthy lifestyles. And I think it's incredibly important to highlight that there are pretty basic things that we can do to help not only our children, but society and the general population live healthier lives in order to have a bolstered immune system which is capable of fighting off these things. So, again, backtracking a little bit, we all know people who go to hospitals and ERs over illnesses that if they were just informed about basic things that they could do to mitigate and quell something that's a cold or flu-like illness, we could avoid all of these hospitalizations, and maybe not all, but the overwhelming majority of them. I remember over the course of a 4 year period of time, I had what I believe was the flu twice. I had it 1 year, and then 2 years later, I had it again. And I literally thought I was going to die. At one point, my temperature was over 104 degrees. I had a fever for 5 straight days. And I just remember I essentially like quarantined myself to the basement of my house so that I wasn't around my family. And I I just remember laying there on the basement floor, which was fortunately carpeted, thinking like, wow, this is what it feels like to be on death's door. Because after 5 straight days of having 101, 2, 3, 4 degree fever, you kind of start to lose hope that your body is going to fight it off. And I remember thinking to myself, if my fever doesn't break after that fifth day, if I wake up on the sixth day and I'm still not feeling well, I'm going to the hospital. Like, that's essentially the thought process that was going through my mind. And fortunately, on both occasions, it did end up breaking. But that's what it just makes me think this whole situation, I'm pretty healthy. Although during that time frame, maybe I was thin, and to some people I looked healthy, but I pretty much lived a sedentary lifestyle. I was heavily involved with my IT job. I wasn't working from home at the time, so I didn't have the ability to get up and be as active. I wasn't eating as well. I was probably pretty depressed and stressed out at times too, which has a dramatic impact on your overall health. And my body just wasn't fighting it off. But I've made some pretty conscious changes in my diet, my overall physical activity. Like, I try to work out at least 5 hours a week now. Plus, I have a daily smoothie, which is frozen fruit, almond milk, honey. Judge me on the almond milk or whatever you're going to do. But anyway, it has almond milk in it. But then I also add at least 2 grams of vitamin C. I add turmeric, ashwagandha, beetroot, moringa, spirulina. I add all of these things into my smoothie. Plus, I try to drink herbal tea on a pretty regular basis, and I just feel so much better. And look, I understand not everyone is going to be able to do that, but there are alternatives to just getting a shot, getting a jab. And with this insta gratification, insta cure society where we're just looking for a quick fix, putting in that work, putting in that effort to stay active, healthy, fit, make fairly reasonable dietary choices, that is not within the realm of what most people want to do. And we need to stop kidding ourselves about the state of health in this country, because obesity is a huge problem. And ironically, one of the biggest risk factors as it relates to complications and comorbidities related to COVID. And this also extends to our children. There are so many obese, unhealthy, sedentary children out there, and they're at risk. Look, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. They are at risk, and there could be bad things that happen to children. But what is astonishing to me is that an article like this can come out with zero data about the numbers of hospitalizations for the kids. They just talk about percentages and increase. And you can see there's actually a link here to the increase in pediatric hospitalizations. So I followed that link thinking, oh, maybe the Los Angeles Times didn't include those numbers in the article because it would just, I don't know, be too informative or something. So they just thought they'd link to it. So then I went to the actual, the release here, the health advisory, and there's, again, zero actual numbers about what's the severity, how many of these kids have been admitted. They simply talk about percentage increase, and they're just admissions to the hospital. Like you could have someone go to the ER and be admitted and then released within a matter of hours. Like there's nothing here. And people are probably getting pretty worked up and upset over this when I don't want to downplay the situation because I don't like that people are suffering, and the level of unhealthy people in this country is astronomical. So that puts us at a higher risk of people suffering unnecessarily. But I just kind of feel like if it was really that bad, we would be seeing the numbers and a little bit more detail and data. Anyone who's watched my previous videos understands that I'm a very data-driven individual, and I like to analyze data and look at the analysis. That's just who I am. And when I read something like this, it's just like this is just some sort of shock content that's trying to get people's attention. And I'll admit, it got my attention. And then when I started to actually read the article beyond the title, I began to see that there's nothing here. Feel free to comment, like, share. I love the conversations and the comments that occur in a lot of these types of videos that I post. So if you feel like that's something you want to do, drop a comment below. Even if you disagree with me, please, let's have a conversation. I am more than happy to engage anyone with any opinion on this topic. Peace.